The only two things that people know about deck rails is that it helps you board slide a lot longer, further and easier, and that it protects your board graphics once you've got the rails on your board. I'm going to teach you in this video all of the reasons why you should be riding deck rails, all the positives, all the negatives, how to put them on and why you should be riding them in 2022. So stick around for this video. So there's so many positives for deck rails and why you should be using them if you like to skate flat bars and rails and stuff like me. That's my favorite thing to skate. I love skating flat bars. I love locking in or holding slides and grinds along the whole flat bar. So if you're anything like me, you're gonna love riding deck rails if you're not riding them already. So let's get into the positives. First positives, like I already said, you can slide so much further and with less wax. For me, I always wax the shit out of a flat bar. Everyone hates it because it's too slippery, but that's just how I like to do it. So I have to be real cautious when people are around because I don't want to wax it too hard and then everyone gets smoked on the rail because it's too slippery. So deck rails for board slides, lip slides, front board type movements, they're going to be better for you. Sliding rails, you can slide for as long as you want and yeah, have no resistance on it. So that's a massive thing that the deck rails are going to be positive for your skateboarding. On top of that, having deck rails, you can slide the crustiest ledges, the driest, rustiest rails, and you're still going to be able to slide no problem because the plastic rails on your board are going to have no friction on whatever kind of debris or rust or anything that's on top of the rails. You're going to be able to slide as long as possible with no friction. So you don't need wax. You can slide the crustiest things. People slide heaps well on doing slappy board slides as well on curves without any wax, and that's all thanks to rails. So yeah, you can slide the crustiest stuff with rails on. One big thing outside of the rail scheme of skateboarding, you're going to be able to grab your board easier. Having deck rails is going to be easier for indie grabs, melon grabs, stale fish type movements, all of the grabs that start with either an indie or a melon, which goes into like methods, tuck knees, indie bones and all that kind of stuff. Anything that you do with your board, grabbing it, it's like a little hook that's on your board. So you're going to have a lot more grip holding your board. So deck rails aren't just for people that like to skate rails as well. It helps you do grabs better. Once again, I already mentioned this earlier, but having deck rails are going to protect your board graphics. So my first experience with deck rails is because I bought that board in the background right there, the Dragon Ball Z Vegeta Frankie Villani board. I wanted to set that up as a cruiser and I didn't want that board graphic to ruin, so I got my first pair of deck rails to protect that graphic. And I realized it's the most fun thing for doing board slides, and then I ended up buying a pair of rails for my normal skateboard. So yeah, if you guys have a really good graphic that you don't want to ruin, get some deck rails on there and then make sure you put them in enough, because I put mine a bit too far to the edge, and because of the concave of the board, the middle of my board can still scratch and touch the rail. So if you're getting it for the purpose of protecting your graphic, make sure you account for that concave and bring them in a little bit further. Another big positive that I've experienced with my own skateboarding, I snap and crack a lot of skateboards because I like skating flat bars and rails and I'm a heavy dude. So I've had deck rails on a board where I've cracked the board and the deck rails have held the board together because it's like almost another layer of reinforcement. So when you've got a cracked board, it won't fully snap if you've got deck rails on them. So that's a benefit. It helps your board last a little bit longer and it's just like an extra layer of reinforcement. So you're not going to crack or snap your board. It doesn't fully protect it. Like if you're going to snap your board or you're landing on it really heavy, it still will break, but the rails just help with that little bit more reinforcement. So once you crack it, it won't just fall apart. You can still hold its shape. One cool thing that you would have seen with guys that ride deck rails is because of the gap from the rail to the outside of the board, you're able to lift up the board, put your heels down and lift the board up and move into like hurricane and feeble maneuvers from a board slide. You can push your toes down and get into a feeble or into a Bennett grind from a board slide, or you can go board slide to hurricane or all those type of movements. I didn't get to do any. I've done some at the jungle curb spot here on different board with deck rails, but I've seen a lot of people do that type of stuff, and some of that stuff would be possible, but it's going to be a lot harder without the deck rails. Turning it into different tricks, like things you would not be able to do so easily without the rails. As with anything, with the positives come the negatives, so I'll get into a few of them. First negative is going to be for all you tranny skaters out there. Doing rock the fakies or disasters, they're a lot more inconsistent. If you're doing a rock the fakie or a disaster or something and you're not anticipating and getting ready for it to slide, you can slip out and get pretty damn hurt. On simple rock the fakie moves, your board slides down and you can get hooked on the front trucks. Same as with the switch rocks. I was trying to be real delicate on these back disasters here, so I wouldn't slip out. Like, you have to be really parallel with the quarter pipe. If you go at an angle at all, then you're going to slip out, but that can also work in your favor. if you want to do lots of lip slides or board slide movements on the coping, it will help you because you're going to slide. Another thing is that your wheels are higher up off of the coping, because once your deck rails are making contact with the coping, your wheels are going to sit higher, which means you'll be able to do more board slide and lip slide type movements. So it's a negative because you can just slip right out, or it's a positive if you want to slide because it'll slide a lot easier and your wheels will have a lot more clearance too. So either way you look at it, it's going to change the way you do stalls and quarter pipes. A massive complaint I hear about deck rails, which doesn't affect me. I ride an 8.75 board. I've got 56mm wheels. I've got really wide trucks to match my board, so I've got a heavy board. A lot of people complain that the deck rails weigh their board down and make it a lot heavier, make it harder to ollie, make it harder to do their flip tricks because there's more weight on the board. To me, that's not such a big deal. I just wanted to list this as a negative because a lot of people don't like that. A lot of people say it takes a while to get used to, but I could tell there was a bit of a difference, but like it didn't change anything with my skateboarding. You're definitely going to get used to it, so I just thought I'd note that one. One negative slash positive, again, depending which way you look on it. When you're doing feebles and Smith grinds, you're going to have a higher feeble and Smith point on rails because the rail is actually in the way. Whichever way you look at it, sometimes it's harder to feeble and Smith when you can't lock it in as well, but for me it just felt the same. If anything, there was no resistance because you're feebling on the back truck, but the middle of your board is sliding along the rail, so there was no resistance there because the rail was on, so it helped me grind more. But I could tell the feeble just doesn't go as deep. I didn't test it out on ledges either, like I didn't do any front smiths on a ledge, but it's going to have the same concept. When you're front smithing or back smithing a ledge, the clearance isn't going to be as much because there's a rail under your board, so your smith won't be as dipped. Just depends which way you look at it. I wouldn't say that's a negative. It might even help you smith grind ledges better. I didn't try it out myself. That's just something to note and something to be aware of if you're going to ride these rails. And the last negative of riding skate rails is going to be the screws coming loose and your rails like flapping around on your board. So I've heard that happens a lot. It happened to me the first time I put my rails on. It's the most annoying sound when you lose a screw and the rail starts like flapping and smack against your board. It's almost like when you're in high school and you have a ruler on the edge of the desk and like you bend it and let it fling up and it's like boom, 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 boom. That's the only thing I can only way I can describe it. I've had it happen to me before and it's just, you can't do anything about it once it happens. Yeah, it's just a mess. But in the next section I'm going to show you how to overcome that. So that's all the positives, that's all the negatives. Let's get into how to install these on your board. So this isn't necessary, but whenever I put deck rails on a board, I prefer to put it on a brand new deck. I do it before I grip the board. So I put on a brand new board, so there's no trying to get used to the rails when you're already used to a certain board. You can get used to the rails and the new board together. So that's my biggest tip when you're gonna put rails on. Put it on a brand new board so it just feels like that board is different. It's not like you have to account for the rails. Now it's gonna be important where you place these rails on your deck. Either way, how far in or out you put them, you have to account for the wheelbase. So you need to line them up between each wheelbase of your trucks, because if you've got it too far one way or too far the other way, you're going to have mad wheel bite and it's going to be in the way. So you need to make sure you even it out between the wheelbase of your deck. The next crucial thing is going to be determining how far in from the edge you're going to put your rails. So there's three things to consider here. If you're trying to protect the graphic, you're going to need to have it at least like 2 centimeters in, because like I showed you before, if it's too far to the outside, the concave is going to counteract that and you're still going to be able to scratch the board. So if you've got it too far out, it's not going to protect your graphic at all. So keep that in mind. Put it in at least 2 centimeters from the edge. If you're putting deck rails on your board to be better at grabs, then that's fine. You can put it 1 centimeter in from the edge. So when you're going to do grabs, your fingers don't have to go right into the middle of the board to grab it. It's just going to be right underneath on each side. So you're going to be able to do melon and indie grabs better. So if you want to make it more accommodating for grabs, put it further towards the outside. But if you want to be the person that can board slide, put your heels down and then just lift it up into a hurricane or board slide to feeble type movements, you're going to need to put that in about 3 centimeters in from the outside, at least 3 centimeters. So there's a decent gap for you to press down on your heels, and then the board can come in contact with the rail and you can slop it into either way you want to do it. You can push it into a feeble, hurricane, bennett grind, low-C grind, whatever you call them. So there's 3 different ways you need to position it depending on which way you want the rails to accommodate your skateboarding. For me, I wasn't too fussed about the graphic, so I just put it about 1.5 centimeters to 2 in, and I just wasn't really caring about the grabs or either. I just wanted to put it in that middle range so I could still grab my board, I could do those board slide to hurricane type movements, and then my board would be semi-protected. But yeah, that's just what you want to pay attention to, and it's going to determine how far in you're going to put the rails when you're installing them on your board. If you want to go as far as put the rail down, measure it out where you want it, and then just make little marks, so then you don't have to hold hold it and try and guess that position again. I just eyeballed it when I put mine on because I wasn't too fussed about it. Like I said, I just wanted to skate the rails, but if you want to be really precise with it, make sure you line it up and just make a little mark on the board so you can line it up before you screw it in. Now, if you want to stop your screws falling out and having that problem of the board rail flapping around on your board, making a horrible sound, and then the screws just coming loose. On the installment process, I've got a tip for you that's going to help this. You need to lay down double-sided tape on the underside of the rails. So I didn't do it on this one. I didn't really care about it for this sake of the video. I just wanted to chuck them on and skate it. But if you want it to last long, if you want the rails to stay down for the entire life of the board, make sure you lay down double-sided tape or super glue, just a thin line on the underside of the rail before you place it down. That's going to keep it stuck in that position, and if the rails end up coming loose, if the screws come out, it's still going to be stuck down to the board. Once the double-sided tape is stuck down or the super glue has set, then you can screw it in. What I recommend from here, put a little few squeezes and drops of super glue into the holes before you screw it in. So drop a few drops into each hole, then screw it in. Screw it with a screwdriver too. It even says on the packet not to use a hand drill because you're just going to like thread out the holes and then the screws won't screw into the wood properly. So for the best way to tighten it, screw it and get it fastened to your board, that's going to be the best way to do it. So double-sided tape or super glue, let it set, and then pour a bit of super glue into the holes before you screw it in. Make sure you hand tighten it only, make sure the rails are flush to the bottom of the board. Once it's flush to the board, don't tighten it anymore because all you're going to do is start to like spiral out the holes and thread the holes, and then the screws won't stick into the wood anymore. And that's going to be your best way of having those rails stick to your board, screws not coming out, and that's going to last for the whole life of your board will. So I hope this video was helpful, I hope it was insightful, I hope these tips help you in some way. You can see the positives, you can see the negatives. By now you know everything you need to know about deck rails. You can make your decision if you want to ride them or not. I would definitely recommend, if you've never tried them before, you might as well try it once in your life. Just try new things, have some fun. If you like skating flat bars as much as I do, then these are going to be a dream for you. You're going to slide and grind forever. On the other side of that, if you want to start getting better at your grabs, if you want to skate more like bowls and stuff and you want to hit the lips more, this is going to benefit you as well. There's only those few negatives which aren't really negatives at all. If you fasten them properly, it's not going to be flapping around. If you anticipate your board could slide as you're doing stalls and stuff, then it's going to be fine. Nothing but positives for these deck rails. So if you enjoyed this video, if it was helpful, please hit that like button, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you want, because I'm going to be pushing out a lot more YouTube videos this year, trying to help you guys as much as I can. So let me know what you want to learn next, any reviews that you want to see, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.